Meryl Comer, welcome and thank you for joining us for this session on brain healthy living. We'll explore the role that our diet plays in maintaining good brain health with Dr. Mark Hyman, one of the nation's leading experts in functional medicine, and discuss his latest book, Food Fix. We'll also take a look at the risk reduction research and community education underway at the University of Kansas Alzheimer's Disease Center, including drop-in visits to their research kitchen and exercise labs. Joining us now is Dr. Mark Hyman, physician and internationally recognized leader in the field of functional medicine. He is the founder and director of the Ultra Wellness Center, the head of strategy and innovation at the Cleveland Clinic Center for Functional Medicine, and a New York Times bestselling author. Welcome, Dr. Hyman.
Well, thanks for having me, Meryl.
My pleasure. Oh, I'm a big fan of yours, and I have around 8 of your books. This is your latest, Food Fix.
Oh, thank you.
So over the last 15 years, you've written 13 New York Times bestsellers on both prevention and healthy diet.
Yeah. You'd think I'd run out of stuff to say, but it just keeps coming.
But in your latest book, Food Fix, and you've referenced this before, you make the case that our food and agriculture policies are driving the spread of obesity and food-related chronic diseases. What prompted you to write this policy book now?
Well, it just, occurred to me, Meryl, after decades of practicing medicine and taking care of patients with chronic illness that was predominantly caused by food, that I probably should go upstream a little bit and think about why they're eating the food they're eating. And I realized I couldn't cure diabetes or cancer or heart disease or even Alzheimer's in my office, that it was cured on the farm and in the kitchen and the grocery store and the restaurants. That's where it's cured. And so I began to go, well, if the food system is producing all this food that's making people sick, why is it doing that? Well, it's our food policies. And then why do we have the food policies? It's the food industry, which is the largest industry on the planet. It's $15 trillion end to end. And that is driving most of the policies that are subverting both environmental and public health in a way that people are not connecting the dots. So that's really why I wrote the book, to try to draw attention to that, to name the problem and the intersection of food, not just health and not just the environment, but also social justice issues, health inequities, educational development in children, and national security, the economy, and so much more. And so the goal of the book was to really lay out the problem and then provide a solution. It's called Food Fix, not Food Apocalypse.
There were some stunning statistics that you offered. You said in 10 years, 83 million Americans will have 3 or 4 chronic diseases compared to 30 million in 2015.
Yeah.
Most of them are the disease cost drivers: cholesterol, osteoarthritis, blood pressure, stroke, cancer. What was striking to me,
diabetes, yeah.
Diabetes. Most of them are also independent risk factors for Alzheimer's disease.
Yes. So here's the deal that people don't realize, is that even though in medicine we categorize people in groups according to their diagnosis, you have heart disease, diabetes, cancer, Alzheimer's, they're actually the same disease in different organs. They're diseases of inflammation. They're diseases of insulin resistance, which is basically this phenomena of pre-diabetes and obviously diabetes. And it's driven by the food we're eating. Now, not every case of Alzheimer's or heart disease is food related, but the majority of these chronic illnesses and many cancers, diabetes clearly, heart disease mostly, Alzheimer's, they're calling it type 3 diabetes. So we really begin to understand that these are commonly linked by these mechanisms that have to do with what we're eating, which is a diet extremely high in starch and sugar. About 60% of our calories is processed calories. Most of that's starch and sugar, flour, products, which is worse than sugar, and just plain old sugar in all its forms. And that's driving this metabolic dysfunction, which has resulted in 88% of Americans being metabolically unhealthy. So 42% are obese, 75% are overweight, but 88% are metabolically healthy. Because even if you're thin, you could be metabolically unhealthy if you eat the wrong diet. You're what we call skinny fat. You look thin on the outside, but fat on the inside. And those are all independent drivers of these chronic illnesses, which are crippling our society, costing 95 trillion over the next 35 years in disability and healthcare costs, costing our government 1/3 of its entire federal budget, soon probably to be half, and projected to be the entire federal budget by 2042, because of the incredible amount of healthcare costs that are exploding in our aging population. So we have to grapple with this. And it was striking to me that in any of the political discourse in this election, it's just not an issue. It's just nobody's talking about it.
Well, it was heartbreaking to see the long lines, millions of people going to food banks for assistance, and then reading your book and saying, I wonder what they're being fed to help them. And it really, I think the pandemic has opened our eyes in many, many ways and locked more people in. More people are being forced to cook. I love to cook, but some people don't like to cook. But do you see an opening to get into the psyche of the American public right now?
Yeah, I do. I think, there's an increasing awareness, and it's unfortunate that President Trump got COVID, but I think it highlights the fact that people who are overweight, like he is, and obese, are much higher risk, for example, of COVID-19 and getting sick, which is why he went to the hospital and his wife didn't. And I think that there's a tremendous risk that we're facing from COVID that is greater than most other countries. I think I just read a statistic that the White House has more cases of COVID than New Zealand, Taiwan, and Vietnam combined. And it has to do with the fact that we are an unhealthy population, and COVID lands in a pre-inflamed person who's been eating a processed junk diet, and it like gasoline on the fire, which is what accelerates the disease and causes more severe illness. So I think this is really what we're seeing. We all have immune dysfunction because of our diet, and this is just accelerating the whole problem. So I think it's a moment in time where people are saying, wait a minute, I'm going to start to cook at home. I'm going to start to focus on my health. We did a Parade did a survey, Parade Magazine with Cleveland Clinic, and a lot of people are focusing on exercise more and eating healthier. I know I've become much healthier just being home and being able to cook my own food and not eating in restaurants and not traveling and being able to exercise and have a regular sleep schedule. And, it really is a very different time for us to sort of double down on our health and focus on what the real causes of our pandemic are, which is, our overall poor health.
Do you think the millennials are more open to your message than their parents' generation?
I think they are. The millennials are more focused on their own health and their well-being and quality of life, and also they're focused on social and environmental and climate concerns, which are all connected to the food system. So I definitely see more awareness and connection, but I think there's plenty of people across the whole age spectrum that are getting this and are actually acting on it, which is very encouraging to me.
In Food Fix, you also talk about health disparities and how important food is in getting to health equity. Can you spend some time on that? Because the New York Times came out with a report that those who died of COVID, the large majority had long-term chronic disease. And that set them up for their vulnerability.
Absolutely. I mean, we see in terms of social justice and health inequities, the African-American, Latino, and the Native American populations have been ravaged by this disease. And for example, in Chicago and Louisiana, if you are you're African-American, population there is about 30%, but the percent of deaths is about 70%. So even though they made up only 30% of the population, they made up the majority of the deaths from COVID. And why is that? It's because these populations are heavily targeted by the food industry. Their communities are often food deserts or food swamps. In other words, they have not enough good food and they have too much of the bad food. And they're heavily targeted by these food companies in direct ways that have been shown, for example, by the Yale Rudd School, Medicine and the Center for Obesity. They've shown that the kids who are African American or Latino see far more ads for junk food, far more ads for soda. So this is deliberate and I would say unconscionable in my mind. And I think that we need to start to take care of our populations in a different way and empower people with information, knowledge, education, and the support and access to the right foods. And it's not hard. I mean, you talk about the food banks. I mean, we make enough food on this planet now for 10.5 billion people. We throw 40% away. During COVID, because of the incredible centralization of our food system, of meat packing plants, of dairy, we had to throw away so much food because it couldn't get to market. but people were hungry and not getting food. So we're literally throwing away the food, and yet we're seeing people who are food insecure. And it's because we have this centralized food system run by very few companies, and if it breaks down, it breaks down, and it has massive consequences. So part of the solution is a regenerative system that regenerates health, that regenerates agriculture, that regenerates the soil, and that all will produce healthier food and healthier people.
Now, Mark, I'd like to go back. In 2008, you wrote the Ultramind solution.
Yeah.
And that was fix your broken brain by healing your body, the simplest way to defeat depression, overcome anxiety, and sharpen your mind. Now, you were ahead of your time because all of the researchers in our space are now moving into risk reduction and prevention. So tell me how we can sharpen our mind, please.
Well, you know, Meryl, I wrote that book because I jokingly call myself the accidental psychiatrist and accidental neurologist, because I was treating people with all these physical issues and their brains would get better. So I'd treat them for their asthma or their acne or their digestive issues, and their depression or anxiety would go away. I would, optimize their diabetes and their memory would improve. And so I would sort of begin to notice that there was this profound effect on our overall physiology in our brain. And so I wrote the book as a way of drawing attention to that and explaining how people can optimize their brains by dealing with the fundamental lifestyle factors that are really underlying most of our brain dysfunction. And we now know that depression is an inflammatory disease of the brain. So is autism and ADD and Alzheimer's, right? So is schizophrenia. These are all inflammatory diseases of the brain. So the question is, what's causing the inflammation? Well, we eat an inflammatory diet. That would be the number one cause. And there's a sedentary lifestyle and stress and lack of environmental toxins and other microbiome and various issues. But these are all really driven by mostly our food system and by the food we're eating. So I think, we can, by reducing the amount of starch and sugar, which is probably the most important thing we can do, and eating whole foods and ending our processed food love affair, that's enough to really fix the problem for most people. I mean, 60% of our calories come from processed food in America. That's commodity crops, the corn, wheat, and soy, that are turned into every size, shape, and color of extruded food-like substance that has nothing to do with nutrition, that shouldn't even be allowed to be eaten. In my opinion, these are disease-causing foods, and we should figure out a way to produce high-quality foods, which we can do through this advent of regenerative agriculture.
Let me just ask you, because more and more studies are in fact proving a link between cognitive health and lifestyle choices, but they have exercise, social interaction, and diet. Are these weighted equally, or
I would say that they're probably not equal. I think if you, for example, are eating Hostess cupcakes all day and eating sugar and starch and have a horrible nutritionally depleted diet, you can have all the friends you want and take all the walks you want. It's probably not going to make a difference. So you cannot exercise your way out of a bad diet. I mean, I had a guy who's a trainer who was working with me. He was this very big muscled guy, but he had this big layer of fat everywhere he couldn't get rid of. And he was exercising every single day in a gym. He was a trainer working out all the time, and he couldn't get rid of it. I changed his diet and he lost 20 pounds within, a few weeks. So I think we have to not underestimate the power of food to act as medicine to heal our bodies and our minds.
So we're not in your kitchen, Mark, but I'd like to know what's in your kitchen. What are the top brain healthy foods or supplements that you wouldn't be without?
Sure. Well, I definitely have lots of cans of sardines and mackerel and wild salmon. So that's a total brain healthy food, because the protein and the choline and some of that in there, and also the omega-3s, which are really critical. I eat an array of colorful foods. So I have fruits and vegetables in large quantities. It's about 75% of my plate. So you'll find lots of dark green leafy vegetables, lots of yellow sweet potatoes, pomegranates, and foods that actually have these phytochemicals that help heal and reduce inflammation in the body. You're going to find lots of high quality, good nuts and seeds, which are also great brain foods. You'll find some good quality protein, whether it's a tempeh or tofu I have, but also grass-fed animal meat and organic chicken and certain kinds of fish. And you'll see a lot of olive oil and avocado oil and and you'll see tons of spices. I have a spice drawer that's, probably, like about this big. And I think those are full of medicinal compounds that help us. And it's also important for what's not in there. I don't have sugar. I don't have processed food. There's nothing with trans fats or hydrogenated fats. Everything, you read every label, you recognize every ingredient. It's just food.
There are always critics. And one of the questions when you've experienced working with patients who have taken the right diet, and you said it's made a difference in their cognitive abilities, is that anecdotal? Does it need to be a randomized trial? Can I tell you how I'm feeling?
Well, no, there's been plenty. Well, there's plenty of case series published with data collected that's validated by neurocognitive testing and brain imaging and so forth, and there's also trials like the MEN trial, and there's trials like Dr. Richard Isaacson trial. So they've done interventional trials looking at changes in diet and metabolic health, and have shown really significant improvement. The Finger trial, there's another Pointer trial coming along. So, in fact, when you look at the data, some of these early trials using lifestyle are far more impactful than any drug study that's ever been done to date, even though we spend over $2 billion on drug studies and probably a few 100,000 on lifestyle studies. The $2 billion has produced nothing, whereas the lifestyle studies have produced significant hope.
In your book, you talk about a universal healthy diet, and you've talked about what's in your kitchen. Does that mean that it's also good for our brains? And what about this diet? Because I have all your recommendations on diets, Mark.
Yeah, I know. See, here's the thing. It's not that there's one diet that's going to cure Alzheimer's, but it's going to cause diabetes, or another diet that's going to cause diabetes but will cure heart disease, another diet that's going to fix heart disease but will cause cancer. It doesn't make any sense, right? We basically have a simple set of principles that we can follow that I've jokingly called the Pegan diet, which is essentially the idea that you can eat based on a certain set of nutritional principles that are guides in a nutritionally confusing world, and that we can actually follow these principles through a wide range of cultural preferences, a wide range of different eating styles, and create a healthy diet. I jokingly call it the Pegan diet as a spoof on the diet extremes and diet wars of paleo and vegan, and sort of come up with the fact that all these sort of dietary fads or preferences have far more in common with each other, whether you're paleo or vegan, than with a standard American diet. That's the real problem. It's not, so you can eat meat, not eat meat, but what are the principles? It's eating whole, real foods. It's 75% of your plate is vegetables. It's eating lots of nuts and seeds. It's eating whole grains and beans, but not flour, not whole grain flour, because that's just as bad. It's avoiding all the refined and processed oils. It's avoiding sugar and starch for the most part, having them as recreational treats. It's getting rid of all the chemicals and additives in your diet. Why would you add, butylated hydroxytoluene or isodicarbonamide to your food? I think what did in Europe, they now I think in Ireland, they just ruled that if you have this Subway, they couldn't get some tax deduction because it wasn't considered bread because they had too much sugar in it. There was like 10% of it sugar, but I'm like, that doesn't even matter because the bread is just like sugar anyway. So we don't want to eat any of that stuff, and it's just a simple set of guidelines and principles that helps people thrive.
Mark, everyone here at our summit is really focused on brain health across the lifespan. So I'm going to ask you to take us through different ages, like 20 to 40. What's the best advice you could give someone in that age range?
I honestly don't think there's a different set of advice for whether you're 2 or 22 or 52 or 92, with one exception, which is as you get older, one of the biggest causes of aging and even declining brain health is poor metabolic health, which comes from muscle loss. So you need to maintain muscle. And in order to do that, you need two things. You need the raw materials and you need the heat to turn on like if you're going to put ingredients for a soup, you need to put them in the pot, but you turn the heat on. So the ingredients are protein and the heat is exercise. and particularly strength training. And that's one of the most important things people neglect as they get older, which not only results in declining function, but in a worsening of all the age-related diseases, including Alzheimer's and cognitive loss. So maintaining your muscle and having adequate protein, which is more, we need more as you get older, and it needs to be high quality protein. So you can be vegan, but you're gonna have to supplement with various amino acids and other things to help make the protein high quality enough to build muscle. We've seen that. So meat is the best, and chicken and fish, and and then beans, and sort of goes down the line. So it's really important to make sure you have adequate protein.
The issue of behavior modification. How successful might we be if, in fact, the government policies were revised and food policies were improved in terms of our overall health as a society?
Well, I think the biggest thing we could do would be one simple policy, which would require every single government policy, whether it's agriculture or food programs, food stamps, dietary guidelines, to only allow food that is nutrient dense, that is quality. In other words, quality is the metric. So we would create a standard of what is quality. It's real food. And if it's not real food, it shouldn't be considered really food. It's maybe something you want to have as a treat or something, but it's not what should be guiding our recommendations. So for example, we fund the growing of commodity crops that are turned into processed food, corn, wheat, and soy, that is turned into high fructose corn syrup and various kinds of food additives, soybean oil, and flour. And that basically makes up most of the processed food. The government funds the production of that indirectly through the crop insurance and other subsidies. And then those products get turned into processed food. Then the government pays $75 billion a year, which is one of the biggest line items in our almost $1 trillion farm bill, for SNAP or food stamps. 75% of that food is just junk food. 10% is soda. So the government literally funds the consumption of 30 billion with a B servings of soda for Americans, for the poor Americans. And then they pay for Medicare and Medicaid on the back end. So I think we really have, the whole system is kind of screwed up, and we're really paying for things 3 or 4 times, and the taxpayers footing the bill. We're privatizing profits and socializing the costs.
You started as a family physician in rural, where was it?
Idaho.
Idaho. You have a sensibility about rural and what's missing for the social determinants of good health.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really striking, and I think COVID has opened up our eyes to so many things. When I was reading your book, in many ways, you're like the Alzheimer's advocates. We refuse to give up. I mean, you've been at this for how many years?
30 years.
And in the beginning, Mark, what did they say about you?
I don't know. They didn't notice me, but I think, it's like you get kind of ridiculed. I mean, I'm still struggling with this. You see the naysayers and the doubters and the people are trying to subvert progress. It's just unfortunate, but the truth wins out. And I think eventually we'll all come to understand that this is probably the central issue of our time. And, I think whatever happens, we're working with Congress and the White House, whoever is going to be there to help sort of drive change in the policies that will impact everybody.
I was really fascinated of how you've been engaged up on the Hill and making things happen. His book is Food Fix, and we highly recommend it, but only if you eat a healthy diet. This is a book for our time, Mark. Thank you so much for joining us.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Take good care.
You too.
Bye-bye. The University of Kansas Alzheimer's Research Program was established in 2004 by Dr. Jeffrey Burns and received the prestigious national designation as a National Institute of Health Alzheimer's Disease Center in 2011. It is one of only 31 nationally designated Alzheimer's disease centers. At the KUADC, they're doing more than just imagining the future. They're working with the community to make it real. So what do we mean by that? First, we'll hear from Dr. Jeffrey Burns, followed by members of his medical team who share how they're making and keeping their connection to the community vibrant and engaged.
We need to take a lifelong approach to Alzheimer's prevention. About 1 out of 10 people over the age of 65 have it, and about 1 out of 3 over the age of 85. So if you're going to live a long life, you're at high risk, and you can begin to reduce your risk, we believe, in your 40s and 50s.
There is no cure for Alzheimer's disease. We have pharmaceutical remedies that will treat symptoms, but there's nothing that's going to cure this disease. And so LEAP is that prevention tool that we can use to really reduce the prevalence of Alzheimer's disease.
What I love about LEAP is that it provides hope and empowers people to be able to take those steps to reduce their risk. It includes classes and books and all kinds of really helpful information, but what we're really trying to do is equip people with practical strategies that are based on science and evidence that they can use in everyday life.
It is the only evidence-based educational program focused on brain health. It uses all of the research findings that are known to positively impact brain health. And those are physical activity and exercise, sleep, nutrition, stress management, intellectual engagement, and social engagement. These are the same strategies that they can use to reduce their risk for a number of other chronic diseases as well. So they're really improving their overall wellness.
The difference in the changes between before the program and after the program have been amazing. I can play with my grandchildren easier. I can play with them. I can do woodworking that I love to do. I can do all kinds of things that I have not been able to do for years that I didn't even realize.
A lot of people don't really start to worry about Alzheimer's until they're older adults and they've started to notice some memory and thinking changes. But really, we want to start thinking about it as early as possible so that we can make healthy lifestyle changes to reduce our risk. So we've developed LEAP specifically to be inclusive of all ages.
We still have a fighting chance to put it off. If there's that opportunity for us to have it, then that's something I just want to push far, far away.
If there's anything that I can do now that will give me those extra years, it's worth it.
People don't realize that even small lifestyle changes can make a difference. You don't have to overhaul your entire lifestyle overnight. You can take it one step at a time.
So the LEAP program is our effort to try to package up all these tools and information and education to help people figure out how to embed these things into their life.
It's really that prescription of what you need, that recipe that you can follow, so that you don't have to figure this all out by yourself, but you have a plan to follow and you can make those healthy lifestyle behavior changes in an effective way.
When the doctor just tells me to do something, it's a lot harder to do. It's harder to do by yourself. It's harder to do when you don't have someone to ask questions to right there when you have the question. The LEAP program has been fantastic in that they're there with you every step of the way. If I have a question, I can ask that question immediately. And even if I stopped right now, I know that I would know how to continue where I wouldn't have before.
It just all really works together and made sense. And when you figured these lifestyle changes could, affect all those components of your life, it kind of is a no-brainer just to go ahead and go with it.
They're able to take charge of their own health. We're told to change our diet, our sleep patterns, our exercise habits. But when you share with them that it's not just for your heart health, it's not just because you want to maintain your weight or prevent obesity, but this is actually healthy for your brain. That's huge. People don't realize that they have that power.
Hi, my name is Dr. Ashley Shaw, and I'm a postdoctoral fellow at the University of Kansas Alzheimer's Disease Center. So why does healthy eating matter to the brain? Well, what we eat affects our health, especially when it comes to our brain health. We eat for energy, for nourishment, and for pleasure. But it's important to note what we eat can help reduce the risk of mental decline and protect us against dementias such as Alzheimer's disease. The brain requires a lot of energy to function effectively. And even though the brain only makes up about 2% of adults' body weight, it uses about 20% of our daily intake in calories. So it's important that we nourish our body with healthy foods so that the brain can function at its best. Previous research has actually shown that by following healthy diets such as the Mediterranean DASH intervention for neurodegenerative delay, also known as the MIND diet, can make a significant difference in lowering our risk for developing dementia. The MIND diet encourages eating certain foods like whole grains and dark leafy green vegetables, which are packed with nutrients such as vitamin B, which is vital to our brain's health. Also, the MIND diet encourages eating foods such as berries, which are high in antioxidants, nuts and fish, which both contain omega-3 fatty acids, which also help protect our brain. The brain is one of the most complex yet crucial organs in the human body. And it's important when we think about quality of life that we help preserve it through healthy eating practices so that we can not only maintain independence, but also live a long, healthy life. Thank you.
What if I told you that exercise is not only good for the body, but for the brain also? Well, here in the Reach Lab, that idea is a big part of what we do. We are committed to the belief that exercise can play a key role in healthy brain aging and fighting diseases such as Alzheimer's. While all of our researchers work hard, none of what we do would be possible without the dedicated members of our community. Here is just a brief look at just some of what they make possible.
So with KU, get my workout, they're great.
Three, two, one, and stop.
Our research team is focused on lifestyle interventions such as exercise to improve brain health, particularly as we age. We know that a single bout of exercise, even at intensities such as brisk walking, increases blood flow to the brain. Exercise facilitates new growth of blood vessels and brain cells called neurons to help keep our brains healthy. We are proud to align with the KU Alzheimer's Disease Center and work towards a cure for Alzheimer's disease.
Hi, I'm Dr. Erin Blocker, and we exercise for our brain health. Exercise is good for your heart health, for your muscular health, improves balance and coordination and flexibility, all things that are great for reducing your risk for Alzheimer's disease. But exercising in a group like we do also provides an opportunity for social engagement, cognitive engagement, and stress management. Exercise for your brain today.
Well, it keeps us sharp, it keeps us going, and it makes our body healthy, and so we can be alert all the way around.
Things that we do during LEAP, you do need to use your brain to do those things successfully. Your body feels healthy and your brain feels healthy, you're just good to go.
If I'm anxious, movement soothes me. If I'm angry, exercise calms. If I'm depressed, I feel better. If I'm flustered and frustrated by too much coming at me, exercise provides a sorting time. And if I'm happy, I stay that way.
And I think I'm a little quicker than I used to be on thinking about things that I need to do next, and can plan a little better than I used to. With brain work, I can at least think right, eat right,
and do the best I can just to stay healthy at this age. It's great. I love the class. I love being able to exercise, and I love trying different things. That works your brain. It just makes the day so much nicer and life much happier.
Well, it's first of all good for your body when you get to be a senior citizen. It helps to keep the parts moving and lubricated and joints and muscles strong. And all of that goes into your daily life for walking, for balancing. When you get those endorphins working, why your brain starts saying, hey, you can do that today. You can go out there and pull weeds or do things and take a walk. And you have more energy, and plus you feel better about yourself when you exercise.
Thank you to the team at KU. As Alzheimer's disease research centers move earlier into risk reduction and prevention studies, please know that academic centers like KU need healthy adults just like us to sign up for prevention studies and research. That's it for this session of Brain Healthy Living at Us Against Alzheimer's National Summit. I'm Errol Comer. Thank you for joining us.